Skallagrim was an industrious man. He always kept many men with him and gathered all the resources that were available for subsistence, since at first they had little in the way of livestock to support such a large number of people. Such livestock as there was grazed free in the woodland all year round. Skallagrim was a great shipbuilder, and there was no lack of driftwood east of Myrar. He had a farmstead built in Alfdanes, and ran another farm there, and rode out from it to catch fish and cold seals and gather eggs, all of which there was in great abundance. There was plenty of driftwood to take back to his farm. Whales beached too in great numbers, and there was wildlife for the taking at this hunting post. The animals were not used to men and would never flee. He owned a third farm by the sea on the western part of Myrar. This was an even better place to gather driftwood, and he planted crops there and named it Akrar, which means fields. The islands offshore were called Valseyjar, whale islands, because whales congregated there. Skallagrim also sent his men upriver to catch salmon. He sent Odd the hermit by Glutfura to take care of the salmon fishery there. Odd lived at the foot of Einboabrekker, hermit slopes, and the promontory Einbons is named after him. And there was a man named Sigmund, who was sent by Skallagrim to Nordura, and lived at Sigmundarstadir, now known as Hauger. Sigmundarnes is named after him. He later moved his home to Munarnes, a better place for catching salmon. When Skallagrim's livestock grew in number, they were allowed to roam mountain pastures for the whole summer. Noticing how much better and fatter the animals were that ranged on the heath, and also that the sheep, which could not be brought down for the winter, survived in the mountain valleys, he had a farmstead built up on the mountain and ran a farm there where his sheep were kept. The farm was run by Gris, after whom the tongue of land called Grisartunga is named. In this way, Skallagrim put his livelihood on many footings. Shortly after Skallagrim arrived in Iceland, a ship made land in Borgarfjord. It was owned by Olaf Hjalti, who had brought his wife, children, and relatives with the aim of finding a place to live in Iceland. He was a rich, wise man of good family. Skallagrim invited Olaf and all his people to stay with him. Olaf accepted the offer and spent his first winter in Iceland there. The following summer, Skallagrim offered him land south of the river Vita, between the rivers Grimsa and Flokkralsa. Olaf accepted it and moved there, building a farmstead at the brook called Varmelek. He was a man of high birth. His sons were Ragi from Lagerdahl and Dorarin, who succeeded Rafnin Hingsson as law speaker. Dorarin lived at Varmelek and married Thordis, who was the daughter of Olaf Phelan and sister of Thord Bellower. King Harald Fairhair confiscated all the lands left behind in Norway by Gveldolf and Skallagrim, and any other possessions of theirs he could come by. He also searched for everyone who had been in league with Skallagrim and his men, or had even been implicated with them or had helped them in all the deeds they did before Skallagrim left the country. The king's animosity towards Gveldolf and his son grew so fierce that he hated all of their relatives or others close to them, or anyone he knew had been fairly close friends. He dealt out punishment to some of them, and many fled to seek sanctuary elsewhere, in Norway, or left the country completely. Ingvar, Skallagrim's father-in-law, was one of those people. He opted to sell all the belongings he could, procure an ocean-going vessel, man it, and sail to Iceland, where he had heard that Skallagrim had settled and had plenty of land available. When his crew were ready to sail and a favourable wind got up, he sailed out to the open sea and had a smooth crossing. He approached Iceland from the south and sailed into Borgarfjord and entered the river Langa, all the way to the waterfall, where they unloaded the ship. Hearing of Ingvar's arrival, Skallagrim went straight to meet him and invited him to stay with him, along with as many of his party as he desired. Ingvar accepted the offer, beached his ship, and went to Borg with his men to spend the winter with Skallagrim. In the spring, Skallagrim offered him land, giving him the farm he owned at Alfdanes and the land as far inland as the brook at Leirlake and along the coast to Stramfjord. Ingvar went to the outlying farm and took it over, and turned out to be a highly capable man and grew wealthy. Then Skallagrim set up a farm in Narnanes, which she ran for a long time afterwards. Skallagrim was a great blacksmith, and worked large amounts of bog iron during the winter. He had a forge built by the sea a long way off from Borg, at the place called Raufanes, where I did not think the woods were too far away. But since he could not find any stone suitably hard or smooth to forge iron against, because there was nothing but pebbles there and small sands along the shore, Skallagrim put out to sea one evening in one of his 8-oared boats, when everyone else had gone to bed, and rowed out to the mid-fjord islands. There he cast a stone anchor off the prow of his boat, stepped overboard, dived, brought up a rock, which he put into his boat. Then he climbed to the boat, rowed ashore, carried the rock to his forge, put it down by the door, and always forged his iron on it. That rock is still there with a pile of slag beside it, and its top is marked from being hammered upon. It has been worn by waves, and is different from the other rocks there. 4 men today could not lift it. Skallagrim worked zealously in his forge, but his farm hands complained about having to get up so early. It was then that Skallagrim made this verse. The wielder of iron must rise, early to earn wealth from his bellows, from that sack that sucks in the sea's brother, the wind, and let my hammer ring down on precious metal of fire, the hot iron, while the bag wheezes, greedy for wind. Skallagrim and Bera had many children, but the first ones all died. Then they had a son who was sprinkled with water and given the name Thorolf. He was big and handsome from an early age, and everyone said he closely resembled Kveldof's son Thorolf, after whom he had been named. Thorolf far excelled boys of his age in strength, and when he grew up he became accomplished in most of the skills that it was customary for gifted men to practice. He was a cheerful character, and so powerful in his youth that he was considered just as able-bodied as any grown man. He was popular with everyone, and his father and mother were very fond of him. Skallagrim and Bera had 2 daughters, Seun and Thorun, who were also promising children. Skallagrim and his wife had another son who was sprinkled with water and named Egil. As he grew up, it soon became clear he would turn out very ugly and resemble his father with black hair. When he was 3 years old, he was as big and strong as a boy of 6 or 7. He became talkative at an early age and had a gift for words, but tended to be difficult to deal with in his games and with other children. That spring Ingvar visited Borg to invite Skallagrim out to a feast at his farm, saying that his daughter Bera and their son Thorolf should join them as well, together with anyone else that she and Skallagrim wanted to bring along. Once Skallagrim had promised to go, Ingvar returned home to prepare the feast and brew the ale. When the time came for Skallagrim and Bera to go to the feast, Thorolf and the farmhands got ready as well. There were 15 in the party in all. Egil told his father that he wanted to go with them. "They're just as much my relatives as Thorolf's," he said. "You're not going," said Skallagrim, "because you don't know how to behave when there's heavy drinking. You're enough trouble when you're sober." So Skallagrim mounted his horse and rode away, leaving Egil behind disgruntled. Egil went out of the farmyard and found one of Skallagrim's pack horses, mounted it and rode after them. He had trouble negotiating the marshland because he was unfamiliar with the way, but he could often see where Skallagrim and the others were riding when the view was not obscured by knolls or trees. His journey ended late in the evening when he arrived at Alftanes. Everyone was sitting round drinking when he entered the room. When Ingvar saw Egil, he welcomed him and asked why he had come so late. Egil told him about his conversation with his father. Egil seated Egil beside him, facing Skallagrim and Thorolf. All the men were entertaining themselves by making up verses while they were drinking the ale. Then Egil spoke this verse. "I have come and find fettle to the hearth of Ingvar, who gives men gold from the glowing, curled serpent's bed of ether. I was eager to meet him, shedder of gold rings bright and twisted from the serpent's realm, you'll never find a better craftsman of poems 3 winters old than me. Ingvar repeated the verse and thanked Egil for it. I have come and find fettled to the earth of Ingvar, who gives men gold from the glowing, curled serpent's bed of aether. I was eager to meet him, shedder of gold rings bright and twisted from the serpent's realm. You'll never find a better craftsman of poems 3 winters old than me. The next day Ingvar rewarded Egil for his verse by giving him 3 shells and a duck's egg. While they were drinking that day, Egil recited another verse about the reward for his poem. The skilful hardener of weapons, the peck wounds gave elegant Egil in reward 3 shells that rear up ever silent in the surf. That upright horseman of the field, where ships race, knew how to please Egil, to gave him a 4th gift, the brook warbler's favourite bed. Egil's poetry was widely acclaimed. Nothing else of note happened during that journey, and Egil went home with Skallagrim.